Welcome back to the Beginner PLC Mega Project. In episode 1, we created our very first TIA Portal project, added a PLC CPU, and explored the environment. Today, in episode 2, we'll dive into one of the most fundamental building blocks of PLC programming: inputs and outputs, or I/O. You can think of the PLC as the brain. But what good is a brain without eyes, ears, and hands? Inputs are the eyes and ears. Basically, the things the PLC uses to sense the real world. Outputs are the hands. Actually, the things the PLC uses to act on the real world. Inputs are signals coming from the field devices into the PLC. For example, a push button pressed by an operator, a sensor detecting a bottle on the conveyor, or an emergency stop switch being pressed. Outputs are signals going out from the PLC to the control devices, like starting or stopping a motor, turning on a lamp, activating a solenoid valve to open or close. So when we say PLC reads inputs and controls outputs, we mean it listens to the sensors and switches, makes a decision, and then sends commands to the actuators. Inputs and outputs come into two flavors, digital and analog. For now, we will focus only on digital because they're easier and most common for beginners. Digital means on or off. A button is pressed or not pressed. A lamp is on or off. A motor contactor coil is energized or de-energized. So we have two states, true and false. Later in the intermediate course, we'll deal with analog signals, like 4 to 20 milliamp sensors. But for now, on and off is all we need to understand. Here's something very important. The PLC doesn't work like your brain, reacting instantly in parallel to everything. Instead, it follows a cycle, called the scan cycle. The scan cycle has 3 steps. First, read inputs. The PLC takes a snapshot of all the input values. Second, execute program. It processes your ladder logic or your code. Third, update outputs. It writes values to the outputs. This happens so fast, typically in milliseconds, that to us it looks instant. But remember, your logic is always using the last input snapshot, not the live signal, until the next scan. This is the PLC Beginner Mega Project playlist. We're building a complete packaging line step by step, learning timers, counters, alarms, and HMI along the way. Hit the subscribe button to follow the playlist. Let's bring this into our project. Let's go back to the devices and networks and double click on our PLC hardware. Here on slot 1 we have our CPU and we have 6 free slots. Let me add a digital input card. I choose this one. I just drag and drop it on a slot 2. And let's add a digital output card. I pick this one that has 16 output channels and I drag and drop it on a slot number 3. Okay, now let's go to the tag table, the one that we created in our previous video. Okay, let's start with our first tag, a start button, address I0.0, stop button I0.1, emergency stop input I0.2, bottle sensor I0.3, conveyor motor. This one is an output, so I change it to Q0.0. Green lamp, this is also another output. I change it to Q0.1, and the last one is a red lamp. This is also an output. I change it to Q0.2. Beautiful. So now we define all of our tags and also we assign their addresses. So we save the project, we go back to the devices and networks, double click on our hardware, and if you double click on input module on the, let me expand this. So click on IO tags, the tab, and here you can see our addresses started by default from I0.0 all the way to I1.7. You can change those addresses. Here we have 16 input channels, and you can also see our defined tags and their addresses as well as the tag table that we defined them. Now let's click on the digital output card. Again, IO tags tab. Here again you can see that our outputs started from Q0.0 all the way to Q1.7, and you can see the tags and addresses and the tag table that we defined them. Okay, beautiful. Let me zoom in a little bit, then you can see the IO modules. Okay, so this is our digital input card, and slot 3 is the digital output. You can see the signals, start, stop, stop, and bottle sensor. Here we have some spare channels that we can use them in future, and these are also our outputs and the spare channels. Notice the naming convention, clear, descriptive, and no guessing. Later, when we write ladder logic, we'll be able to say, if a start button is pressed, energize conveyor motor. That's much easier than remembering the addresses like I0.0 and Q0.0. In industry, digital I/O is everywhere. A simple conveyor system might have dozens of sensors and actuators. A large production line might have hundreds or thousands. That's why organization matters so much. Good engineers keep separate tag table for I/O, for memory bits, for HMI signals, and also for big projects we use Excel sheets to track I/O across the whole factory. When you work on a big project, you'll thank yourself for using clear tag names. So to recap, inputs are how the PLC sees the word, outputs are how it acts on the word, they are digital signals on or off, the PLC reads inputs, runs its program, then updates outputs in a cycle that happens thousands of times a second. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to follow the playlist, and see you in the next one.